Hi, welcome to this edition of Supply Chain Spotlight. I'm JT Engstrom with FreightWaves. Joining me today is a special guest, Matt Silver, CEO and co-founder of Forager. Matt, it's a pleasure to have you join us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
How is everything in Chicago?
It is freezing cold. We've gotten over a foot of snow in the last couple days alone. You're still not going to convince me Chattanooga is a better place to live, but it has been miserable the last couple days.
Yeah, and Craig would certainly argue that it's the best freight town in America. So we can debate that again at a later date. So first and foremost, most important of this entire subject, we'll have a great discussion regarding Forager, the founding of logistics, brokerage, technology. But first and foremost, congratulations on the new board.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm excited to have Teddy and hoping he'll understand what a TMS is, at least by the time he's 3, and understand customs brokers by 5.
I trust that you'll be able to accomplish that. So that's very exciting. So congratulations.
Thank you.
So within that context, can you provide us, for the audience's benefit, a little bit about your background and maybe when you first learned about TMS, which I'm sure was probably equivalently early. I think that would be helpful and educational for everyone listening in.
I mean, I'll be honest, when growing up the entire time, I knew that my dad was working at American Backhaulers, and I'd been to the office a bunch of times, but beyond the fact that it had something to do with trucks, I actually had no idea what they did. I did not know what a TMS was until I was probably 18 when I started working at Coyote. And so I worked at Coyote most of my adult career up until almost 3 years ago when I left. While I was there, I worked in a lot of different departments, everything from tech support to customer operations, carrier sales, private fleet, but ultimately spent 3 years building out the Mexico department and then spent a year focused on Canada and left in early 2018 to start Forager and ultimately started Forager specifically to handle cross-border freight. Yeah,
and that's a great background or baseboard into our next discussion topic was the development of the thesis, the approach to the market, the launching from kind of day 0 or day -1 before Forager was actually founded. Can you talk to us a little bit about how the company was started?
Yeah. So when I originally left Coyote, I was planning on going to work for a tech company that's in the freight space, but not specifically logistics and moving freight. And during that interview process, I kept talking about Mexico freight. The guy I was talking to said, "You keep talking about freight. We're a visibility company. We don't actually move freight. Are you sure that you want to come work here?" And at that point, I realized that my passion was moving cross-border freight more than visibility. And so I reached out to Jordan, one of my co-founders. We had been talking about the type of company we wanted to start, and ultimately landed on freight, and separately brought in Jesse, our third co-founder, to start the company. We knew it was going to be for cross-border freight. We knew that we had to start off as a broker, got our broker's license and everything else that goes along with being able to move freight, and raised a small pre-seed round in December of 2018 for $1.25 million that was led by TFI International. Started building the business, started moving some volume, realized that we needed a TMS to actually manage the business. And so we started building our own tech. And it became really apparent that it was a lot more exciting to, number one, to build technology, build efficiency into the tech, build an amazing experience for our shippers, for our carriers, and for the people at Forager. And we started to invest much more heavily in the tech and less on the brokerage side. And so we saw a natural move from trying to build a more traditional freight brokerage to investing more on the tech side.
Yeah, that's remarkable. And so given that you started off as a relatively more traditional broker, but with a differentiated target market selection, can you talk to us a little bit about what it's like evolving into more of a tech-enabled play and then developing a roadmap and thinking through how to build out those teams and then invest in those teams and continue to progress to the roadmap in an economically viable fashion?
Yeah. So When I think about what we're building, we've needed to build a TMS that actually manages cross-border freight, and it handles all the complexities of it. Everything from the customs brokers to the transfer companies to the carriers on both sides of the border. We built out an entire onboarding system for trucking companies in Mexico because RMIS only handles stuff in the US and Canada. We started to really build something tailored to cross-border freight, and saw that a lot of those tools could be leveraged by every part of our network. And so when we started to build, it became very apparent that there was a lot of complexity to it that didn't exist in any other TMS. So we knew we couldn't just buy a TMS and then build on top of it. We knew we had to build from scratch. And as we started to think more about the rest of the industry, you look at companies like Uber Freight and Convoy, and they've made a big impact in the market, but they're very much domestic focused, and it's very much about scale and about being able to match a shipper and a carrier. Matching is obviously a core component of what we need to do. It's how we procure supply, but it's really the infrastructure that goes into the technology that makes it so unique. And we knew that most shippers had cross-border freight. We knew that they were used to getting service from a large broker or a large trucking company, and what you get from a large broker or a large carrier are usually elevated rates, and you also get a lack of specialty. And we knew that it was a difficult enough business model and a challenging enough market that we could differentiate ourselves by being the experts in that mode or in that trade lane and becoming experts for all of our customers. It's why we've been able to have so many conversations with such large shippers and not have to kind of scrape and claw our way to finding large brand name customers.
Yeah, and that unique and differentiated target market and value proposition approach, I think serves you really well in acquiring new customers and also gaining wallet share that others aren't in as targeted of a fashion seeking to address. And so within that context, can you talk to us a little bit about two factors? One, the commercial development associated with that, which is a little bit unique and nuanced, and then also simultaneously developing the technology enablers that can help address user behavior change.
So when it comes to the actual commercial side of it, we set out to make a name for ourselves early. We were able to develop a reputation as industry experts when it comes to cross-border freight. A lot of the people that work here have worked in cross-border volume. We've got people in Mexico that have worked for large shippers and large brokers. We've been able to pull a team of people that come from the industry and have the expertise while balancing it out with expert technologists. And so we bring on the right intelligence from how do we build the stuff side of it, but we also have the strategy side of it from how the freight actually moves across the border. And so we're marrying those two things up into the actual product that we're building, and it also manifests itself in what we sell and what we market and what we talk about every day. For the second piece of it, what I would say in terms of the tools that are being built, a lot of it early on has been designed around creating scale in our system. So being able to track freight, being able to receive tenders through third-party TMSs and APIs, allowing shippers to be able to build their own loads and have their own selection inside of the marketplace. It's all about externalizing the tools for our customers that make it easier for them to use. Same thing for the carriers, and then walking them the rest of the way towards the fact that they could use a self-service tool, even if they're a large Fortune 500 shipper.
Yeah, that's tremendous. And given that focus, it also enables you to develop not just a differentiated value proposition, but a differentiated intellectual capital base, which I would think serves you really well when sitting at that either negotiation or relationship management table, figuratively, if you will. On top of that, I know your product roadmap is quite unique, and it's something you're very involved with, and you're thoughtful about how to invest in. Can you talk to us a little bit about how you think about incrementally investing in that product roadmap, knowing that ultimately it's to serve your customers' best needs when at that relationship table?
We take a really balanced approach. So we know we've got a few different swim lanes when we think about our roadmap. Internal cost to serve, which is anything related to operations internally. You've got everything related to a supply side so a carrier's experience in our marketplace, their ability to bid on loads, book loads, discover new contracted opportunities within the marketplace, and then from a shipper standpoint, their experience and how they go about getting rates, how they go about finding where their loads are, and how they go about managing their business. We want to enable all of them to be able to grow with us and for our system to grow. And so the all of the features that get built for one part of our business, it usually translates across all different kind of users. You see a lot of interconnectivity between the shipper portal, the TMS, and the carrier-facing marketplace of the load board. And it all has to connect because the TMS powers it and ties it all together. So it's a very intricate roadmap that is focused on scale, but also on creating a better experience.
Yeah, that's tremendous. And I think having that level of planning, at present stage and even earlier on is really sets you up with a great baseboard for growth. And so within that context, can you talk to us a little bit about what the near-term future looks like for Forager, both in terms of growth and then in terms of strategic opportunities and continuing to build the business?
Yeah, so near term, we've got our load board launching in the next few weeks, which we've talked about it enough times, and I'm happy to talk about it here. We want to give carriers a way to be able to bid on loads and book freight themselves. They'll be able to manage their own profiles. Coming after that, they'll be able to publish their own rates. So they'll be able to upload any rate that they want to be able to publish it inside of the marketplace, and they can affect pricing in the system. Customers start to get access to that direct capacity and that direct pricing, and you start to see more liquidity happen in the marketplace, and you start to see more activity that way, and you get to scale faster by enabling both sides to actually start participating directly in the system. And so we want to continue to reduce friction when it comes to how negotiation happens between parties, how freight actually moves across the border, and marrying all of that up with the operational side of it and enabling the data to actually transfer so that shippers, carriers, and customs brokers and facilities all feel like they're collaborating in one system instead of all these emails and all the finger pointing that generally comes with cross-border freight.
Yeah, and interrelated to that, can you talk a little bit about some of the nuances associated with cross-border, which are clearly different than just traditional OD lower 48? Some obvious, some not so obvious. What are some of the more unique ones that people find themselves most surprised with?
You've got a customs broker, obviously, in the middle of it, potentially two. So depending on which border, whether it's Canadian or Mexican border, depends on the type of customs brokers that you're interacting with, the type of paperwork that's required. You also have multiple trucking companies involved. So if you're moving something out of Mexico, you might have 3 tractors and potentially 2 trailers involved in a single shipment that to the customer, that's a load going from Guadalajara to Chattanooga. They know that it crosses in Laredo, but they don't necessarily know that there's a different tractor that brings it from Guadalajara to the border, and then a second truck that moves it right across the border, and then a third truck to the final destination. So you're pulling all these different pieces together from potentially 8 different parties. It's a lot going on versus a load that's just picking up in Dallas and delivering in Atlanta 2 days later, where you just need a driver with a truck and a trailer to do it.
Yeah, that's much more involved than a pure long haul ride across the country.
Yep.
And what are some of the key mechanisms that you guys use to keep track of all this or manage all this complexity? And obviously, technology is a big component, but are there specific tools that are perhaps proprietary to Forager that you can talk about?
It's the TMS itself. We built the entire TMS around being able to manage cross-border freight, which means being able to manage all of those different pieces. We don't have a notes field anywhere in the system. So there aren't lists of information or directions about how to clear freight. There's nothing that says this is the customs broker. We have the customs brokers built into the system so that we can integrate with them, so that we can pull data in, so that we can share data back and forth, transfer the truck information, the trailer information, all of that data. There are so many different people involved and so many different companies that are involved in a cross-border load that you need a system of record for that. And right now, most companies are living out of spreadsheets, email, and a whiteboard. And so we want Scout to become the system of record for those cross-border moves and allow shippers to be able to manage all that data and everything else directly in that system.
Yeah, that's tremendous. And now I guess with our final minute or so, What makes you most excited over your near to medium term horizon, both in terms of the industry and in terms of Forager?
I'm most excited about our load board launch. I personally spent a lot of time with carriers in my previous roles and love the interactions that I've had with them. I know they've been desperate for freight that moves cross border for a marketplace or a load board to be able to actually go get that freight. And I am excited about being able to provide tools to the supply side of this marketplace because in this industry in general, everybody thinks about shippers. Everyone is focused on the shipper and broker. And you don't see this emphasis on the carrier side when in reality, and I know that's not completely true. I know companies are focused on carriers too, but in reality, giving carriers the tools to build their business will be how we can build our business faster because we can be allies to our carrier base. I'm excited about that, and I'm excited about the continued connectivity that we're seeing across the entire industry from our partners like Project 44 and a lot of the other businesses out there that kind of tie the business together faster.
Yeah, absolutely. That's tremendous. So with that, we're out of time. Matt, thank you for joining us. It's great to have you on.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Absolutely. So Matt Silver, CEO and co-founder of Forager. Thank you. I'm JT Engstrom with FreightWaves. Have a great day.